Coming up in this first episode of In Clear Focus for 2026...
There's a lot of hype around everything's written by AI now and AI is taking our jobs, but perceived or real, this sort of automated revolution around content, people still seek out human to human contact. They want to talk to each other behind a screen or in real life, whatever it is.
You're listening to In Clear Focus, fresh perspectives on marketing and advertising, produced weekly by Big Eye, a strategy-led full-service creative agency growing brands for clients globally. Hello, I'm your host, Adrian Tennant, Big Eye's Chief Strategy Officer. Thank you for joining us. Content marketing has become table stakes for B2B companies, yet despite their investments in blog posts, white papers, webinars, and social media, many marketing teams find themselves trapped in a frustrating cycle, producing more content than ever while generating less impact. Yet the pressure to demonstrate ROI has never been greater. Our guest today argues that B2B content marketing needs a fundamental reset, one that puts human connection back at the center of strategy. Devin Bramhall is a seasoned B2B marketing expert with over 15 years of experience spanning startups, agencies, and large corporations. She's best known as the former CEO of Animalz, the leading content marketing agency for B2B SaaS companies, serving Series A startups to major tech brands, including Google, Amazon, and Slack. Devin now serves as a fractional chief growth officer to CEOs and marketing leaders and is a recognized thought leader on B2B marketing strategy and the use of storytelling in business. She's also a speaker at industry events, including Marketing Prof's B2B Forum, Inbound, and SEO Week. Devin's debut book, published by Kogan Page, is B2B Content Marketing Strategy, a media-first framework that accelerates growth. It provides a practical guide for marketers who want to implement human-centric strategies that break through long, complex buyer journeys and deliver measurable results. To discuss why traditional content marketing playbooks are failing, how community-driven approaches can accelerate growth, and what it takes to earn executive buy-in for marketing strategy, I'm delighted that Devin is joining us today from Brooklyn, New York. Devin, welcome to In Clear Focus.
Hello, it's great to be here. Thank you.
So Devin, what inspired you to write B2B Content Marketing Strategy?
Well, first, I've always wanted to write a book since I was a little girl. I just never knew what to write about. It's the most bizarre wish in the world to say, I want to do this thing, but I don't know why. So in 2024, in the summer, I got an email in my inbox from a woman named Donna saying, we're interested in publishing a book from you. And I'm used to getting more salesy emails saying, hey, you can pay us, we'll write and publish your book, blah, blah, blah. So I actually completely ignored it. And I asked a few friends and they were like, you should just ask her. So long story short, Kogan Page were interested in me pitching a book idea. And the thing that I was really passionate about was this sort of mantra that I started at Animalz when I was the CEO, which was outcomes over activities, right? So we were producing our blog articles, social media content, newsletter content for companies to help them grow. But both our customers and sometimes our writers would get caught in this sort of activity loop. I wrote enough articles. Did you deliver enough articles? I want blog content. And my question always to the CEOs that I spoke to and the marketing leaders that I spoke to on sales calls, I was like, why? What for? And the point of that is the idea of marketing activities is that they are there to produce results. And the smartest strategy, according to Richard Rumelt, is the fewest actions, right, to deliver the greatest results. And I felt like content marketers had lost that, and so had their leaders. And this book is my detailed guide on how to think and operate in an outcome-focused manner and focus more on discovering the unique opportunities that gives your company leverage over competition instead of simply executing the same list of activities that every other company is doing.
Well, in your book, you argue that traditional B2B content marketing playbooks just aren't working anymore. So what's changed?
Traditional B2B marketing playbooks were very focused on creating content that helps customers do their jobs better, do their lives better, right? And through building that long-term content-based relationship, you would build a brand awareness and affinity that, when they were ready to buy, because B2B products are periodic purchases, not consistent purchases. So you're already top of mind when the customer is ready to buy. And similarly with the paid side of marketing, right? It was all about showing up in search results and things like that. So that worked really well when the VC funding model was growth at all costs, because these startups had an abundance of cash that they were expected to spend quickly to throw at growing really fast. And you could invest heavily in ads, content, hiring, tools, and all of that. But around, late 22, early 23, the funding model advising from VCs changed to profitable growth. And what that did was change the financial model, but not their expectations around how marketing works. And so by having less money to invest in marketing, smaller teams, those former playbooks that include, for example, building a keyword-based marketing plan. You write a bunch of articles, you publish those articles, you wait for them to rank in search, you make updates, etc. That didn't work anymore because the expected timeline for results didn't change alongside the method of growth, which is like profitable growth essentially is slower, not necessarily, but when you think about spreading a budget out. That was the biggest impact, honestly. And I know it sounds boring and pie in the sky, but practically speaking, that changed the conversations I was having with my clients, the way marketers were having to sell strategy, what they could sell. And it also made us ripe for this sort of AI bubble, because the idea that AI can make things go faster is really appealing and does serve that model, even though it doesn't work in practice that way.
Well, you make a strong case for community-driven growth and what you call human-centered content. What does that mean in practice?
Yeah. In the early aughts, when SEO, keyword-driven content, right? When that sort of first came into the world of B2B marketing, it delivered outsized impact. You could become a SaaS company just writing search-driven articles and exit that way. It was just because it was a new practice, because the internet didn't have so much content in it, because not everybody had adopted it, right? The founder actually of Animalz previously created a SaaS startup and just grew it with search content and sold it, started Animalz. So there were many cases about that. And since that's not the case anymore, because there's a lot more saturation, there's a lot more competition, there's a lot more startups out there, search content already wasn't working very well. And then also you have all these practical changes around the structure of search engines, which content is showing up, how that content shows up, whether or not it links back to an article, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a very structure of the internet that has changed what works. And there's also differences in how platforms operate, all these things, right? All the things, the tools and platforms that marketers use to help grow companies, they've all kind of fundamentally shifted. But there's one thing that stayed the same. And actually, with all this perceived or real impact from AI, there's a lot of hype around everything's written by AI now and AI is taking our jobs. But perceived or real, this sort of automated revolution around content, people still thrive and seek out human to human contact. They want to talk to each other behind a screen or in real life, whatever it is. I'm a perfect example because when I was growing Animalz and I became the CEO, we had strong word of mouth from the beginning. And I leveraged these sort of early believers in us as an agency and the new people to kind of create a community around Animalz. We didn't write for search. at all. Like our website was not designed, like we didn't get any business from search content. We did it by me having a strong vision and mission and sharing that with the world, us writing, perpetuating it, and then through our customers. So community became for us and can for others a constant hum. It's this thing that gives back. It lowers cost of acquisition because, you've got other previous clients who will refer you. There's a constant buzz out in the world. And it can be a lot cheaper to execute because the way you execute it is by working with people within the company to grow the community. And so depending on the product you make, at Help Scout, I worked with our engineering team, our design team, our customer service team, and brought them into our content plan. So people really got to know different people at the company. And so Help Scout as a brand became ubiquitous for its design, its customer service practices, our presence at conferences. We had long lines waiting for our t-shirts that were designed using our custom illustrations, et cetera. And so what happens is you can leverage your existing resources within the company in the channels and environments where they already are to make your brand more ubiquitous, right? Increase the area of your brand while also creating a depth of relationships because each person is engaging authentically. You're not giving them social posts, right? You're having them engage in the ways that they already do with the people they already do, right? You're just giving them tools to talk about the brand. And so in doing so, you have this shift from what I call predictable growth, which is like every playbook right now. Like go find the keywords, go stack up the articles, your ad strategy, et cetera, your audience growth strategy, to what I call an exponential growth, right? And that is where one thread in Reddit from your engineer can blow up one day and drive a bunch of traffic. Or I remember when I was working for SpringPad, they were similar to Evernote. You save stuff there. And one of our competitor apps shut down. We created a conversion tool, some tool where you could take the data from the other one and bring it into SpringPad. And we put it on a landing page and we shared it out to everybody in that community. Was that engineering or was that marketing? Or was it just a really good community-based growth strategy, right? And I have 1,000 examples, I'm sure, but that's at the heart of it is like a community-based strategy is one in which the wheel can turn without you physically turning it. Where if you think about organic content strategy and ad strategy, it's like you are cranking that wheel with people, effort, and money constantly to keep it going.
One of the frameworks in your book focuses on aligning 3 elements: message, messenger, and channel. Devin, can you walk us through that concept?
Yeah. This is where you take the idea of community strategy and make it a lot simpler. And so another person who actually has really great frameworks on this is Ashley Foss. Her and I actually gave a talk at Inbound and a talk at Marketing Profs. I forget what we called it back then, but it was like the rise of the internal influencer or something. But her and I collaborated on these talks and came up with these ideas, this concept as well. And she has a book about this stuff and she goes into it in a granular way, differently than me, that I highly recommend. But the first thing is you want to identify your highest impact opportunities. And to do that, you look at the channels where your audience is actively engaged, the messages that your company is uniquely qualified to deliver. What are you the best at? Who at your company has a perspective that isn't already out there or a background that isn't already out there that's really appealing, right? And then the messenger. So the messenger is the third one. And these are people who have credibility. Maybe they have a following in that community already, unique contrarian perspective, et cetera. So those are the components of how you can identify a high impact opportunity, right? Because those are all the things that are uniquely you. Those are things that you're going where the people are and using the only thing practically left that companies have to differentiate, which is like the people that are there and the ideas those people have and the product that you're making, right? Next step is to design experiments, right? So you're going to identify some opportunities that you think will have some outcome. That's great. But you don't know it's going to work. And so you don't necessarily want to go full tilt on something before you have any signals that, yeah, okay, we're on the right track. This is going to work. So I advocate strongly for companies to design experiments before when they have ideas, because you could actually do multiple experiments, maybe 2 at the same time to test multiple ideas. You're going to have a pretty good sense that your idea is going to work. But I do think that in my experience, anytime I have an idea, when I put it into practice, things are a little different. And so dipping my toes in to get information along the way is helpful. So, you can test your messages by having your CEO share certain LinkedIn posts that you help craft for them based on their audience, or you can ask your customer service team or whoever it is, right? Whoever your messengers are, right? And what I advocate for that not nearly enough companies do, but that they could learn from influencers and other content personalities is say the quiet part out loud. If you're experimenting with an idea or a message or anything, you can just say, "Hi, everyone. We've been working on this, so-and-so in marketing and so-and-so and blah, blah, blah." You can record video, like all that B-roll of the process. Your customers love hearing. It's how you connect with them. And so going back to this whole idea of like why community works, your experimentation can be part of your audience building and your brand awareness because you're bringing them into the process. And so, I think a lot of companies have this old school view that messaging has to be crafted and then perfect and then put out. And I don't agree with that. So, and then the last 2 are kind of like measuring if it works, right? So I advocate for measuring not just whatever the metric you're trying to drive is. Oh, we're trying to get more free trial signups or subscribers or whatever it is. You also want to measure alignment. Posting something through a person on LinkedIn and seeing a lot of people posting comments on it, saving it, sharing it, things like that. And then, so you kind of find your balance of like, okay, this is aligning with my community and it's driving results because it has to do that, right? The outcome has to be there. And then once you find that, that's when you start to expand. And you're going to expand until a point when it stops working. And then you'll have to refine it. It won't work forever. When I say it out loud, it sounds very in-depth. But like you could do a brainstorm in one day that takes care of steps 1 and 2 completely. And then the next day you can be like, okay, so-and-so, go post this on LinkedIn, go post this on Reddit. We're going to send this in an email, right? It doesn't have to be that complex.
Let's take a short break. We'll be right back after this message.
Hi, I'm Devin Bramhall, author of B2B Content Marketing Strategy, a media-first framework that accelerates growth, published by Kogan Page. So if you've ever felt like your content marketing creates a lot of activity, but very little real business impact, this book is for you. I wrote it to help mid-career marketers move beyond outdated playbooks and build human-centered strategies that actually drive growth. Drawing on my experience as a former CEO of Animalz, where I worked with brands like Google, Amazon, Slack, and Ramp, plus real-world case studies from companies like Cisco, Help Scout, and Novatic, I present you with modern marketing frameworks that combine community building with AI and multimedia-based tactics to create growth strategy that gives companies unique advantage over the competition. As an In Clear Focus listener, you can save 25% on B2B Content Marketing Strategy when you order directly from koganpage.com. Just enter the exclusive promo BIGI25 at checkout. Shipping is always complimentary for customers in the US and the UK. I hope my book helps you create content strategies that build real connections and drive measurable results. Thank you.
Welcome back. I'm talking with Devin Bramhall, author of the Big I Book Club selection for January, B2B Content Marketing Strategy. Devin, you write about getting to really know your customers, and you introduce the idea of living audience profiles. I'm curious, how does that differ from traditional personas?
Yeah. So traditional personas are static. You get your Marketing Mary profile and, it's been all designed. There's like a photo and there's a bulleted list of criteria. And I can remember countless startups where that's part of onboarding. Here is your Marketing Mary and Stupendous Stewie, whatever, like they have their I don't believe anymore, specifically in the B2B space where, a significant portion of that is technology-based companies, that people stay that static anymore. I mean, think about it. Think of how much changes just culturally, globally, economically. Change is so much faster now, in part due to technology and 24/7 news and constant communication, et cetera. So it's like, why would we expect our buyers to remain static as well? You could use the last 3 years as an example. The number of clients and just like other executives that just come to me and they're like, what's going on, Devin? Right? And working across clients, it's easier for me to identify patterns. And things are changing quarter to quarter based on whatever policy changes are being made, funding, et cetera, et cetera. First and foremost, we just don't live in a static world anymore. Buyer circumstances are changing constantly. Second is AI is like, there's the availability of AI and building things like custom GPTs, where you actually have the ability to take inputs from across the company that are constantly feeding into it to help refresh that profile, which is of particular use to marketing. They're always looking for more messages, creative ideas, content, right? And so just having that ability where before it would have been a manual effort is new and awesome. We're just in a world where we have to adapt faster. I think ideas are going to come back into style again. Whereas like past few years, it's all about getting your keywords, writing your keyword content, like trying to be like, it's just content's been so basic and boring for the past several years. And so I think now, given the changes with LLMs and all that stuff, I think actually bespoke ideas are going to be, on trend again. And so I think now is a really good time to do that. But that's why I think this adoption of living profiles is really a great opportunity and not a high risk.
Interesting. Devin, what does quality look like now in B2B content marketing?
Does it work? Look, I ran a content marketing agency for years, and we worked with the biggest brands in tech, tiny startups all the way up through the biggest brands in tech. I have heard every single person in B2B SaaS's opinion on what quality means. I've heard it from every content marketer, VP, CMO, CEO, the engineering, the CTO who thinks they know what quality is. And there just isn't one definition, and there shouldn't be, because everyone's customer is different. Now, you could argue that within an industry, you've got competitors, you're sharing the same customer profile, et cetera, which is true. But because every customer cohort is different, and also like company to company, you might be profiling them a little differently. You really need to think about quality in terms of the outcomes that you are looking to drive and the customer you're serving and their wants and needs. And to me, if the customer is doing what you want them to do and they're happy and they're referring you, right? And you're getting the outcomes you want, that's it. Like, it doesn't matter if anyone else likes it. And again, you've always got your company values and style. Like, companies already inherently have guardrails to make sure that you're not using offensive language or whatever, going too far off the deep end. And so since those are already in place, I'm like, okay, does it work on your customer? And does it work on the outcomes you're driving? If those two things are, great, done.
Okay, so what happens when strategy goes off the rails? How should marketers navigate resistance or shifting priorities?
It always goes off the rails. It's going to go off the rails. So the first thing that you can do is create a strategy alongside your strategy for when it definitely goes off the rails. Like, build that into your strategy from the get-go. And I talk about this a lot because one of the things that I gained from being both a career marketer and a CEO is I've now seen deeply the experiences and challenges of both sides. And because of that, I was able to bridge together why marketers and leadership can often be at odds in one way or another. So, and one of those ways is that there's the marketer's understanding of what leadership needs to hear in order for them to not just give buy-in, but continue being bought in and not change course along the way. Because that, in terms of things that go off the rails, is probably the most common thing, where marketers finally get some semblance of their strategy approved, hopefully in time to actually execute it. And they start executing, and all of a sudden, the CEO's like, what do you mean? Like, what is this? And like your CTO's like, I never approved that. And CFO's like, what are you spending this money for? We don't need, but And I think that's a skill that marketers in particular really need to work on, which is that whole executive management, the executive communication, really building into your strategy. How am I going to be able to keep doing this? How does my CEO need to understand this strategy in order to be excited about it? And sort of take charge in that way, like become marketers for your own strategy. Because I think what a lot of times people do is when they're in a conversation with leadership asks them a question or they take a conversation in direction and they follow. But I'm like, if you're a marketing leader and you're presenting a strategy, like you don't have to follow them anyway. You're like, you can stop and say, hang on a minute. Here's what we're trying to, right? Like you can refocus your executives. You can change the narrative before it goes too far, right? In non-contentious ways, right? This isn't about saying, you're not talking. It's like, you're not saying the right thing or you're not asking the right questions. Like, no. You're like, hey, look, I understand why you're asking this question. You've got to report up to the board and you've got these other, whatever else you've got to do. You've got your stakeholders and you've got to be accountable to them. I understand that. I don't necessarily understand all the ways you have to do that, but I understand that you need to see these 3 things are happening so that you can go to these meetings. I'm saying that this strategy will accomplish those 3 things and it will do it by this estimated time frame. And I can give you results on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. And here's what that would look like. Weekly, it'll be signals, nothing guaranteed. Monthly, it'll be small returns. Quarterly, right? Again, saying the quiet part out loud, bring that stuff out and develop a contract with them. And then constantly recommunicate that contract. Like that is literally how you keep things on the rails. Executives are dealing with 500 different small and big things every single day. And so given that, it's your job to be proactive about keeping them on track, because all the things that go off the rails in your marketing strategy, like with your customer, an ad spend, whatever it is, you know how to handle that already. That's a nothing burger, right? And so your main problem is dealing with the stakeholders around you, the people who are giving you the budgets, who are approving your strategy, to make sure they don't do anything to block you along the way, either when stuff goes sideways or when it's working, because that happens too. Yeah, just the constant and never-ending communication and contracts with your leadership, I think is a start.
Got it. So for B2B marketers who are feeling overwhelmed by all the pressure to do more with less, what's one piece of advice you'd give them?
Don't do more. Like, do less. That's strategy. Think for yourself. Don't go to any playbooks. Don't look at what anyone else has done. Think for yourself. Look at the physical things around you. Whatever resources you have within the company, in your own network, in your company's networks, whatever it is, look at what you have and work with that to come up with an actual strategy, because keyword stuff and all that other social media planning are just plans. Use that to come up with a strategy to do less and accomplish more.
Great conversation. Devin, if listeners would like to learn more about you, your work, or your book, B2B Content Marketing Strategy, what's the best way of doing so?
devinbramhall.com. I just started a newsletter where I'm going to kind of tackle all this more in depth. And it's also where I'm hosting some new offerings that I'm putting together to be more hands-on with marketing leaders to help with some of this stuff. And one of them is something I call the CEO Proof Your Strategy. It's like a 2-session advisory sprint focused on something tangible that you're working on, whether it's like a strategy or reporting or something, and get very practical hands-on. Like I will go in and review it and edit it and give you feedback and talk to you and explain or whatever. Because marketers right now don't have a lot of money for this, like taking a course or like ongoing coaching. I'm like, do you need help with something? I got you. Let's just take care of it really fast. And I'll be doing more stuff like that. So my website is really the best place.
And a reminder that In Clear Focus listeners can save 25% on B2B Content Marketing Strategy when you order directly from koganpage.com using the promo code BIGEYE25 at checkout. Devin, thank you very much for being our guest this week on In Clear Focus.
Thank you.
Thanks again to my guest this week, Devin Bramhall, the author of B2B Content Marketing Strategy. As always, you'll find a complete transcript of our conversation with timestamps and links to the resources we discussed on the In Clear Focus page at bigeyeagency.com. Just select Insights from the menu. Thank you for listening to In Clear Focus, produced by Big Eye. I've been your host, Adrian Tennant. Until next week, goodbye.